Lasha Chopikashvili. In the country of Georgia in 2007, a local shepherd, Lasha Chopikashvili, was assaulted and hit on the head with a stick by Alex Bukatov. Court documents suggested that Chopikashvili had died at the scene from his injuries, but as Lasha would confirm himself later on, he was simply knocked unconscious. When he awoke, he departed the city to go tend sheep in another village, leaving Bukatov sentenced to 6 years in jail for killing him. However, Bukatov claimed that his confession was given under duress and that he was forced to name 3 other people as accomplices, who were subsequently charged with disposing of the body and released on bail. But only 4 months later, Bukatov's representatives managed to contact Lasha, who confirmed that he was alive and well, forcing the sentencing to be rescinded. Following evidence that authorities knew Lasha was actually alive, yet investigating the claim of death anyway, the deputy district prosecutor in the case was charged with neglect of duty in 2013. Lasha is alive and well. The Campden Wonder. In August of 1660, an Englishman named William Harrison, estate manager to the Baptist Hicks, set off on foot for the village of Charingworth, about 2 miles away, in order to collect rent owed to his master. He never arrived back. When he did not return that evening, his wife sent out a servant, John Perry, to locate him, but he also did not return. The same night, Harrison's son was sent to see what had happened. During this journey, he met up with John Perry, who was by then returning back home. They joined forces and searched for William, but could only find a shirt, a hat, and a neckband. The hat had been slashed by a sharp instrument, while the shirt and the neckband were covered in blood. No body was found. A rumor started that John Perry was responsible for his master's absence, and that he, in fact, had killed him. He was taken in for questioning and was remanded in custody at Campden, and it was whilst he was being held that Perry declared that he had information that he would disclose. This prompted closer interrogation, and he then declared that he was not responsible for the murder of William Harrison, but his brother, Richard, and his mother, Joan, were, and that they had killed and robbed him for the rents that he had collected. William had apparently been strangled and the corpse dumped in a local cesspool. In the first hearing, Joan and Richard pleaded innocent, but John's statement indicated to the jury their guilt. A search was conducted of the local cesspool and surrounding areas, but nothing was found. However, John also pleaded not guilty, claiming his confession had been brought on by a moment of insanity, but all 3 were hanged in 1661. Now here's the twist. William Harrison reappeared in 1662 with the story of robbery, kidnapping, and having been shipped out of England, bound for America, then captured by Turkish pirates, and then sold by them as a slave. William stated that while returning from his rent-collecting expedition, 2 men on horseback attacked him with swords and kidnapped him. They brought him to the port city of Deal, where they put him on a ship, which sailed off in a direction unknown. During their voyage, the ship encountered 3 Turkish vessels. William was among the men captured by these Turkish vessels, and he was eventually sold as a slave to a physician in Smyrna. After about a year, his master died, leaving William to survive for himself. He made his way to a nearby port, where he used a silver bowl from his ex-master's house to buy passage on a ship bound for Portugal. After they arrived in Lisbon, he encountered a fellow Englishman. This man took pity on William, giving him money, and arranged his passage on a ship heading for England. William Harrison's story is now considered by most to be ludicrous. But then again, where was he the entire time? And why did John Perry confess to killing him? These are the questions that people still ask to this day. Shi Xiaorong. In April of 1987, a woman's dismembered body was found in a river in China. The local police did a thorough investigation into missing persons and an identification by family members, as well as blood typing, confirmed that the deceased was Shi Xiaorong from Guizhou, who had worked in the local plaza emporium but had been missing for a month. Tang Shi Shan, a butcher, was convicted of the murder. Tang's profession was a major factor, as the cuts used to dismember the body were said to be very professional. Authorities alleged that Tang had sex with Shi and killed her because he suspected she had stolen his money. He was executed in 1989, despite his pleas of innocence. 15 years after the resolution of his criminal case, Tang's alleged dead victim, Shi Xiaorong, was arrested for drug trafficking and jailed. While Tang's family had long suspected that she was alive, they had lacked the funds to engage in any sort of investigation. She said she was sold into marriage with a man from eastern China's Shandong province a month before the body was found. Xiaorong also asserted that she and Tang did not even know each other, urging the government to declare his trial a miscarriage of justice. Xiaorong returned to her hometown in southwest China's Guizhou province in 1993, and Tang's children were told she was alive 1 year later. It took them years to verify the information, and they initially lacked the funds to confront the legal system that had executed their father years before. In June 2005, when Tang's children grew up and found a job, they filed a lawsuit with the Hunan Higher People's Court. The HPC eventually reviewed it and decided to acquit the wrongfully executed Tang on January 18, 2006, through a retrial process. Laurence Joseph Bader. On the morning of May 15th of 1957, Larry Bader, a cookware salesman for the Reynolds Metal Corporation from Akron, Ohio, told his wife that he had to deal with some bad checks from some business transactions and that he was probably going to go fishing after that. Being an avid sportsman, Larry rented a boat from a livery on the Rocky River near Cleveland and left the dock around 4:30 p.m. Storm warnings were up, but the water was calm. Larry had planned on being out on the boat for about 2 hours, and the storm wasn't predicted for 3, so he was certain that he could get back safely in time. Sadly, he did not. The next morning, his boat was found washed up on the rocks at a nearby beach. The Coast Guard never found his body and said that the water had been so rough there was no way the young husband could have survived. 5 years later, Larry was declared legally dead by a judge presiding over the case. 4 days later, after Larry died, a man named John Fritz Johnson made his first known appearance at a Round Table bar in Omaha, Nebraska. Johnson immediately attracted attention by sitting on a flagpole for 30 days to raise money for polio. His popularity led to his becoming a bartender, radio announcer, and TV sports director at KETV7. With his flamboyant personality, he became one of Omaha's most popular entertainers. Johnson lived an equally colorful bachelor lifestyle, driving a hearse equipped with pillows, a bar, and an incense burner, aptly naming it his hunting vehicle. In 1961, Johnson married Nancy Zimmer, a 20-year-old divorcee, and adopted her daughter. Later, they had a son together. In 1964, it was discovered that Johnson had a cancerous tumor behind his left eye. He lost the eye and wore an eye patch, adding to his flamboyance. On February 2, 1965, Johnson, who, like Bader, was an archery enthusiast, attended a tournament in Chicago. And this is where the lives of the late Larry Bader and the flamboyant sportscaster Fritz crossed. A man from Akron was visiting the show and did a double take. Fritz was the splitting image of his friend Larry Bader, his body double. He then brought Bader's 21-year-old niece, Susanna Pica, to have a look. Convinced, she asked him, "Pardon me, but aren't you my Uncle Larry Bader who disappeared 7 years ago?" He said that he had no idea who Larry Bader was and even agreed to be fingerprinted. And that is exactly what happened. Both Omaha and Chicago police took Fritz's fingerprints and sent them off to the FBI. They were compared to a set of fingerprints that Larry Bader had made while in the U.S. Navy, and to everyone's surprise, they were an exact match. The late family man Larry Bader and the sportscaster Fritz were one and the same. However, Fritz still continued to maintain that he had no recollection of his previous life as Larry Bader. He had no clue who his first wife was, no memory of his first 3 children, no recognition of his own mother. Nothing. A team of psychiatrists examined Bader for 10 days. Their conclusion was that Johnson had no recollection of his former life. According to psychologists, cases of amnesia lasting several years, in which the person filled the missing time with false memories, are rare, but not unheard of. Another theory was that the tumor behind his eye may have been responsible for Bader's apparent memory loss. This was never determined conclusively. Bader's reappearance caused many problems for Mary Lou, his first wife. She had been receiving $254 a month from Social Security. She also received $39,500 from Bader's life insurance policy, both of which would have to be paid back. Also, Mary Lou had been dating since her husband's death and had recently accepted a marriage proposal. With the marriage reinstated, her new marriage was impossible, since she was Catholic. Since Bader's reappearance, his marriage to Nancy was regarded as legally null and void. However, she claimed she would stick by him. The malignant tumor that cost Bader his eye eventually resurfaced. Bader/Johnson died on September 16, 1966, at St. Joseph's Medical Hospital in Omaha. His death meant that the question of whether he was an amnesiac, a schizophrenic, or a hoaxer was never resolved. Clarvius Narcisse. On April 30th, 1962, a man by the name of Clarvius Narcisse checked in to the Albert Schweitzer Hospital in Haiti. He was displaying feverish symptoms and describing a pain that felt like insects crawling all over his body. The staff at the hospital gave him his own private room and put him under close observation, but his condition quickly deteriorated. Within 2 days, doctors at the hospital had pronounced him dead. His family was informed of the tragedy, and the funeral took place several days later in Lister. His body was placed in a coffin with the lid nailed down, and he was buried. 18 years later, in 1980, a man approached Angelina Narcisse, the sister of Clarvius Narcisse, in the marketplace of Lister. This man introduced himself as Clarvius Narcisse. He then attempted to prove his identity. He included a nickname that she used to call him. This was a nickname that was only ever used between the 2 siblings. This information about the nickname finally won around Angelina. She then knew that the man standing in front of her was her dead brother. She took Narcisse home and immediately contacted the rest of the family. After a careful investigation, with the help of authorities, they came to the conclusion that this was indeed Clarvius Narcisse. When the newspapers came calling, Narcisse admitted that he could remember the doctors declaring him dead and the terrifying feeling of being buried alive. He stated that within days of his burial, Narcisse was dug up and awoken from his eternal sleep by a Haitian voodoo sorcerer, also known as Bakur. He was heavily abused until he agreed to drink a strange potion cooked up by the Bakur. The potion left him in a heavily sedative state. He was taken to work on a sugar plantation, where he saw people just like him working and laboring. He was also given some kind of concoction every day so that he never regained his memory. His ordeal at the plant went on for about 2 years until the Bakur died and Clarvius walked away to his freedom. When asked about why it had taken so long for him to return to his village, he put the blame on his brother. Narcisse had apparently argued with his brother a few days before he started to feel ill, and he thought that his jealous brother was behind the actions of the Bakur. He waited 18 full years until he received news of his brother's death. Then he returned to find his sister. The case of Clarvius Narcisse as well as his death, is well documented, though the story has come under some scrutiny. Researchers believe that the strange concoction that caused Narcisse to enter into a death-like coma was a powder, a combination of tetrodotoxin and bufotoxin, which are pufferfish and toad poisons, administered through a braised skin. He was then kept in a state of seeming hypnosis. Cases like the one of Narcisse have been repeated over and over in Haiti. People get slipped poisonous concoctions, declared dead, but in reality are still alive. The family buries the person. The people who gave the person the poisonous concoction arrive at the grave, slip the antidote, wake the person, and take the person away. To do what with, it is only known to God.